Hello everybody, Andrew Casey at Hypersanity Books, and today I'll be reviewing Hypersanity by Dr. Neil Burton. This is a non-fiction book. I will touch on different writing tips to help with your writing, and with the subject matter, you might be able to break away from the social norm and work on the best writing you've ever done. Let's get into it. Number 10. Definition.
Now, I've personally spoken about how the rulers of this world, the powers that should not be, are hypersane. Hypersanity is a type of insanity. I've also pointedly remarked that they are insane, and this confuses folks.
So the definition of hypersanity, it comes in a few arguments. One point though, Dr. Neil Burton came up with the terminology, and from there, around the world, more psychologists and psychiatrists are coming onto terms with what hypersanity means. Now, it's the same sort of thing with dissociative identity disorder. Not all believe in the disorder, and not all people are agreeing in a unanimous decision on it. With hypersanity, one of the key factors is, a part of it is breaking away from society or working in with society. And it's the different ways of problem solving that make it interesting. With hypersanity as well, it's taking a more human approach to mental health or mental illness. And some of the ways of problem solving is breaking away from the masses of people to problem solve in a different way. And throughout this video, there'll be a lot of different examples that are given. And within that, you might say that you're fully hypersane or you're 50-50. It's just different ways on how you problem solve, and that's what this video is aiming for. Number 9, Patch Adams.
Went through medical school with the idea I wanted to use medicine for social change, so I looked at medical problems and care delivery.
Well, the movie promised to build my free hospital and didn't give me a cent, so that part I didn't like. I did live in his home for 12 days and found him to be a wonderful, kind, and loving man. In the movie, it is my girlfriend that is murdered, and in real life, it was my best male friend, and I had to apologize to their family. The movie, for me, is very tame. My life has been a lot more outrageous than the film.
Patch Adams absolutely comes into the category of hypersanity, and with the mental illness part, he has a mental breakdown in the beginning of the movie, when you look at that, to the true story. And with that human interaction, working with another person, it allowed him to work and develop on himself, and he was inspired to keep growing. So someone who is at the worst time and lowest point of their life to commit suicide gets a bit of help and then sees a different way of helping people.
Why don't you like me? You're a prick and I like you.
Because you make my effort a joke. I want to be a doctor. This isn't a game to me. But you ask the average person when death comes knocking at their door whether they want a prick on their side or some kindergarten teacher who's going to kiss their ass.
You know, I forget how young you are, Mitch. That you think that you have to be a prick to get things done, and that you actually think that that's a new idea.
And with hypersanity, he took a different approach. So you look at, with the long story short, you look at his character and the approach that he takes. He's still passing with his subjects. Someone else is studying hard and has that different profession, and he resents the character. Through the story, it comes to working together, and he says, I have this person, I cannot make her eat. I have all this study, all this information, I've worked so hard, and I can't solve this problem. So he goes to Patch Adams to solve the problem. Later in the movie, though, Patch Adams, as much as he's in the category of hypersanity, he also works in with the other person with the legal side of the problem that he's dealing with to keep his job. And the ways of problem solving that he does with others and together makes this person unique.
The film promised to build our hospital. None of the profits from the film ever came to us. And so basically 40 years into this work, we are still trying to build our hospital.
Number 8, believe in yourself. One of the big subject matters that Dr. Neil Burton talks about is believing in yourself, having a good self-worth. Yes, there is other limitations like the deadly sin pride and having a big inflated ego. However, for some hypersane people within the profession they're in or the field they're in, they will working to problem solve in their own way and different ways. But it's finding that right balance and understanding themselves better. And there's always room for self-growth. In the Cruella video, I talked about limitations of absolute characters. When someone is an absolute, where do they go from there?
Okay, we're going to use the Joker from Batman. And this might make some of you laugh, but actually this is a serious character study. Okay, he acknowledges it but disregards it, and affects society in a way that is incomprehensible to the citizens of Gotham. You'll notice that he is constantly justifying his actions as well.
Not about money, it's about sending a message.
Another absolute character, and a lot of other professionals reference Heath Ledger's Joker, like my shirt. They reference him as the billboard picture of hypersanity. And with that type of definition, you look at the criminal story within The Dark Knight, and you look at his completely different insane approach. The character is still in the category of insanity, though it's working to solve problems in a different way. And I'm not saying that hypersanity is always necessarily black and white, good and evil. It is just a different way of how the mind thinks, away from the norms of the structures of society. Number 7. 7 stages of grief. Stages of grief, it doesn't have to be so formulaic, and it's not. It's disputed that it's not. You don't go through these phases literally. It's a figurative example. Starting off with shock or trauma as the first point. That's left out of the 5 stages of grief, but that's the first point. Then there's denial, anger, negotiating, or bargaining, whatever you want to call it, depression. Then there's testing. Number 6 is testing. And then 7 is resolution or acceptance. Now, with the 7th point, resolution and acceptance is sometimes it's accepting a bad thing as something good or being helpless to a situation. And sometimes to some resolutions, it's necessary to find that. With hypersanity, with your writing, some of your best writing will be staying and keeping yourself in that testing phase when you are writing. And putting yourself under those sorts of pressures at times is quite healthy for you. On the video I did, Writing into the Dark, you have the logical side of the brain and the creative side of the brain. And you need your creative side to be able to pump out words. And that is something to really think about. So with the 7 stages of grief on the subject of hypersanity and writing, stay in that testing phase and push yourself. And a lot of hypersane people will stay in that type of category because the resolution doesn't sort of comes to an acceptance or a retirement. So if you do want to keep writing, that is a good place to be. And then occasionally go into the acceptance and the resolution phase and take a break. Number 6, environmental misconceptions. Now, one thing I want to make clear, you could have an example as a domestic toxic environment. You could be in a job that's toxic, like The Devil Wears Prada. You could have a situation of working out in doing public duties, or just say with your writing. The environment is one thing to an expectation. The expectation of others under pressure to resolve a problem their way is not necessarily hypersanity. Hypersanity, you might be in certain environments and doing well, and sometimes removing yourself from certain environments is the hypersane thing to do. Number 5, inner peace.
I never thanked you for saving my life.
He never actually said so, but I think he made his peace with God.
Sometimes with the resolution phase and acceptance phase, you look at the Lieutenant Dan character in Forrest Gump. He has his expectations of what he was supposed to do with war and die. With the story moving forward, he's grumpy and not liking his life. When it came to finding more purpose in his life, he came to that other acceptance. Now, I'm not saying that Lieutenant Dan fits into Hypersanity, though the way he had what you might call a change of life being so drastic and extreme, and then finding new purpose, that can come into a form of hypersanity. So if you're not happy with the profession you're in, you're not happy with your life, you can change it. And one thing that I do want to say within this channel, get away from the masses of asses and write that book.
Yeah, I got new legs. Custom made. Titanium alloy. It's what they use on the space shuttle.
Number 4, read this book for yourself. One thing I'll say within this channel, I might be touching on a few books. With this particular book, and because it's non-fiction, I highly recommend reading this book for yourself. Do it for you. Within so many points on the book, you could interpret something your own way. And that's one of the other things. Don't just take what I'm saying and other reviews or whatever else. Just present with some information, but look at things for yourself. You might be able to see some of the different strategies and subject matter and apply it to you yourself. And that's one thing to do with your writing. When you are reading non-fiction books, I also recommend buying the book. You might have a way of outlining highlighters for personal use or for creative use. Number 3, mental breakdown. With whatever people say within regards, there's some things we go through in life, there's other interpretations, there's blame. Sometimes, if you are having a writer's block, put yourself in someone else's shoes. Sometimes lay on the couch and pretend that you're talking to a psychiatrist. Pretend you're getting into character and fake that mental breakdown. With what I'm talking about with that, you might find other reference tools of someone being down at that lowest point and different ways of problem solving to get to a new life. And if you are having writer's block, I found this book was also helpful as a way of stopping, thinking, go back to your notes, go back to your reference tools, and within a few minutes you can get back to your mind and get ready to write. Or it could also help you with your mind to just read another book. And sometimes that's another approach. You might be having writer's block on trying to write a story and not knowing what you should do. So sometimes do that to get into a type of character and read a book similar within that genre and go for it. Number 2, divided society. So one thing I do want to make clear, not all psychiatrists and psychologists agree with the terminology of hypersanity. Not everyone agrees with having a mental breakdown and leading to a mental breakthrough. With the terminology as well, yes, I talked about the masses of people. There are a lot of people in life that are not good for you. There are a lot of people who will hold you from what your personal goals are. And sometimes you need to work out what it is that you want. There are different professions out there that are noble and able to help people, though some of those jobs do come with downfalls. I see it all the time, and I've seen it throughout life where people put everyone else above themselves and try to make other people happy except for one person, themselves. Number 1, Hypersanity and me. I'll leave a link at the end of the video. There is a channel that I liked, and that's where I first heard the terminology of hypersanity. It will be the Joker thumbnail. Owen Likes Comics. Love the channel. The terminology of hypersanity. With how it came for us, I was working on needing a business name, and I couldn't think. So within that time, my wife started to play on words as well and came up with hypersanity because she saw some of the different places I got to with my writing. And that type of example might happen to you. And with the logo as well, I had to respond to a few things and she was playing around with it. We had the logo designed and paid for the copyrights and everything else. That's one thing where we've worked together with what we've accomplished. Otherwise, that's it. Please hit like to push this video out further. I will be touching on the subject of hypersanity in other videos, but that's another video and shall be told another time.